Today's video, we are kind of doing a messy kind of prediction, where you have 6 candidates, 3 from the Democratic Party and 3 from the Republican Party, battle it out on a presidential election prediction. Now, why is this even a prediction? Well, first of all, there are states like California with a jungle primary, and if the US had a jungle primary, it could look something like this, in which both sides with all of its candidates would end up splitting up its support, and it would be quite interesting to see how this jungle of candidates will do on a presidential map. We will have our 2 major candidates here. In this case, it's probably Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and we have the minor candidates. Some of the candidates are going to matter more. For example, someone like Ron DeSantis or somebody maybe like AOC, while people like Kamala Harris and Mike Pence are really not going to get any support at all. So yeah, this is our epic video where our 6 candidates battled it out. Now, first off, let's just start from the West Coast and move our way to New England. Washington is the first state on this map, and there's going to be a decent chunk of voters that support Joe Biden and a decent chunk that supports AOC. I think at this point, Joe Biden's still going to carry it. He is the incumbent president, and I think the second place candidate could be AOC, the more progressive choice, and then I think Trump would come in third, and DeSantis would come in fourth. Now, the state of Oregon. Oregon, I think this is a state where AOC could potentially win. This is a very progressive state, and this is a state that would generally support progressives. Now, California. California, I think there's a lot of rural areas and there's a lot of urban areas. Biden had millions of votes here, and even Trump had millions of votes in the state of California. And really, I think Democrats still have the upper edge, definitely because this is California, and California is just not as progressive. It's more of a more establishmentarian state, and I think for that reason, Joe Biden is going to win. Now for some of the rural states here. So Idaho, I definitely think it's going to be a Trump state. Many of these Great Plains state, Middle America states, these are states that are going to go for Donald Trump. Montana here, I think Ron DeSantis could have some appeal in the more suburban type of areas, but again, Montana doesn't have many large cities, so Trump is definitely favored in the state. Wyoming as well, the Dakotas. These are very conservative states, states that rely heavily on their farming industry, and these are states that are going to go for Donald Trump. Now for the state of Nevada. Nevada, again, these swing states are going to be very interesting because it doesn't really matter as much on how well the parties can do. It doesn't really make much of a difference on really which party has more to vote, but rather which party can unite better. Now, in a state like Nevada, Republicans could have their votes split more evenly. I don't think Nevada is necessarily a very progressive state, and I don't think really Democrats who like progressives like AOC have much of a shot. But Ron DeSantis could split away a lot of the Republican vote in Clark County, while Trump could sweep the rest of the state. And really, because Clark County has 2/3 of the state's population, this could be a pretty big issue for the Republicans, and I think Joe Biden could end up winning. Now, Utah is not as conservative as states like Idaho and Wyoming. More than 20% of the vote in 2016 in the presidential race went to a anti-Trump conservative, Evan McConnell, who really ran the never Trump type of campaign, and that really shows that someone like Ron DeSantis could actually win the state. And we look at the 2 senators from the state of Utah. Mitt Romney, obviously anti-Trump, and Mike Lee's not that conservative as well, more religious type of state, but it's not as conservative as most Trump states are. So for the state of Alaska here, I think it will be Trump again. Trump definitely winning most of the conservative states. Hawaii definitely will go to Biden. I just don't think there's much of an argument to be made against it. Now, Arizona, again, a lot of the vote splitting will not help the Republican Party. One of the reasons being that AOC is just, there's not a lot of progressives in many moderate states. States are considered swing states. And really, many of these Arizona voters, I don't think they would like a progressive like AOC, but they could be more split on the rural appealing Donald Trump and the suburban appealing Ron DeSantis. So I think because of that reason, Joe Biden will end up winning the state. Now I think for Colorado here, I think AOC has a pretty good shot. It's a very progressive state, just like Oregon. Although the state has only recently moved from a competitive state to a Democratic state. In fact, in 2012, the state was very competitive. But at the end of the day, now it's a solidly blue state and a solidly progressive state. Now for Donald Trump, Nebraska's second, definitely a safe area. Nebraska's third as well. Nebraska's second could go for Joe Biden, but I think Ron DeSantis could even win this district because of the fact that many voters were anti-Trump here, and I think AOC could split up just enough votes for Ron DeSantis to carry the district. And I think for Maine's first, it's going to still be Donald Trump, though by a much narrower margin, because I think Ron DeSantis could come in second. Now for the state of New Mexico, I think Joe Biden still wins it. It's pretty obvious this is not as progressive a state. This is a strong oil state. This state could support Trump, definitely supports Trump more than DeSantis, but I think Joe Biden still is gonna win the state. Now Kansas is interesting. Ron DeSantis could peel off a lot of the suburban voters near the Kansas City, Missouri area. By the end of the day, Trump is definitely favored. Oklahoma, it's a Trump area. Now Texas, this is interesting. There are three really important parts of Texas that you need to win over as both parties. Trump definitely has a rural appeal. Biden has the urban appeal, and suburbanites are generally going to vote for Ron DeSantis. In this case, I think Trump does have the upper edge because I think he can do better in some of the suburban voters as well and end up winning the state because he is a Republican, and being a Republican, Texas definitely gives you a boost. Now, Louisiana, Arkansas, Tennessee, Alabama. These are southern states are very liberal, conservative leaning, and these are going to be safe states for Donald Trump. And Trump is currently leading the electoral count with 117 electoral votes. The combined vote right now is 124 for the GOP and 110 for the Democrats. However, we still have a lot of Democratic states to go, as well as some Republican states as well. So for Florida, because Ron DeSantis is the governor there, I think that he could end up winning the state. Again, we saw the landslide victory for him in Florida in the 2022 governor election. He won the state by 17 points. He flipped Miami-Dade County, a county that voted for Hillary Clinton, by 23 points. In fact, Hillary Clinton did not even win the general election. Now for Georgia. Georgia's interesting. It's a trending blue state, but could Ron DeSantis peel off enough suburbanites? I think so, and I think Ron DeSantis could have a decent shot of actually winning the state. Now South Carolina, though, it's not as conservative as some of the other states that we've discussed about in this video that are labeled in the Trump category, but I think that Trump still ends up winning the state of South Carolina because, again, it's still a deeply Republican leading state. And for North Carolina, I think the state could end up voting for Joe Biden. Again, there is a Democratic governor in the state of North Carolina, and I think one of the reasons that Joe Biden could end up actually winning the state is because of the fact that there's going to be votes splitting between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump to end up helping and boosting Joe Biden's campaign there. Now for states like Missouri, Kentucky, and West Virginia, these are not really states to discuss about. Trump has definitely a huge amount of appeal in these type of states, and these states are going to go for Donald Trump. And as well as that, Indiana as well going to go for Trump in this hypothetical matchup. Now we have the Rust Belt and a lot of the New England states to go. Now, let's start with Iowa, Ohio. Iowa and Ohio definitely still leaning towards Trump. I don't think there's much question. Joe Biden and AOC could split some of the vote. They won't do too much vote splitting. But at the end of the day, I don't think Ron DeSantis could peel off much of the rural voters in both of these states. So they're going to be likely for Donald Trump. I think Illinois, though, that's going to be likely for Joe Biden. Illinois is not necessarily the most progressive state. Now, I do know the fact that Illinois just elected a progressive mayor, Brian Johnson, over the more moderate Mayor Paul Vallas. However, speaking, Paul Vallas I think was just too conservative for many of the Illinois of the Chicago voters' liking, and he just barely lost. So I don't think AOC can pose much of a threat to Joe Biden there. Now the state of Virginia, this is definitely a state that Joe Biden wins. AOC doesn't have much of a shot. This state is definitely a more mainstream liberal state, and I don't think Republicans have much of a shot there. So DC definitely going to be safe for Joe Biden. It's the definitely the most blue area in the United States, but it is not necessarily a progressive region. Now, Minnesota, I think this is also close, but I think Biden has the narrow edge here because of vote splitting, and as well as that, I think Joe Biden just generally could do better in a state like Minnesota. Now, I think Wisconsin here could go for someone like maybe Trump because, again, Trump was someone who performed definitely very well in the state of Wisconsin. Now, I know he actually lost the primary there to Ted Cruz in 2016, but at the end of the day, that really did not end up hurting his chances. In fact, he would have definitely did better than in Wisconsin than what Republicans could have done if they nominated Ted Cruz. So I think Michigan and Pennsylvania, though, because of vote splitting, these are states that are going to go for Joe Biden, and I think the reasoning is quite simple. These are states that really, again, have a lot of suburban voters that will not end up supporting someone like Trump. Now, they might support someone like DeSantis, but too many rural voters are going to support DeSantis for Trump to actually win the states. Now we have the rest of New England. So for the rest of New England here, I think Biden's definitely going to win New York, the state of Maryland, and the state of Delaware and New Jersey. These are states that are more mainstream liberal, and these are states that I think Joe Biden could definitely do well in. So, as well as that, Connecticut, Rhode Island, these are states that are more mainstream liberal, and you can see right now Joe Biden at 253 electoral votes. Democrats have carried over 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency, and we still have a couple of states remaining. Republicans, however, also crossed the 240 electoral votes threshold mark, with Trump at 192, DeSantis at 53, with a combined vote of 245 electoral votes for these two candidates. Now, Massachusetts, Vermont, these are states that could go for the AOC. Massachusetts as lane and Vermont as safe. Bernie Sanders is from Vermont, and Massachusetts holds Elizabeth Warren, and this is a state where a lot of progressives do end up turning out and voting for someone like AOC. Now, New Hampshire, I think Joe Biden wins because he did very well during the presidential election, and I don't think there's a lot of progressives there. Now, I know that Biden did not do well in the New Hampshire primaries, but I think that is besides the point of my argument. So finally, you have 4 electoral votes left. Trump is definitely going to win the 2nd District of Maine. He does very well there. Joe Biden could end up losing the 1st District of Maine because, again, there is a lot of progressive voters in this particular region of New England. I think overall Maine at large could go to AOC. So Democrats do end up winning the majority of electoral votes at 292, with the Republicans at a combined 246 electoral votes in this hypothetical matchup. Kamala Harris, Mike Pence, sorry, but I don't think you can do that well in a presidential election. Mike Pence could hypothetically win a state like Indiana, but I just don't think that's likely. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.